Hello, my name is Justin Bright and welcome to Kerbal Space Program version 1.7.3, where I am doing my next small step RP-1 playthrough. So let's just get right into it, shall we? Alright, let's do some historical rocket reassembly because we now have a couple extra parts that we didn't have last time we were playing with the Aerobee design. So let's go ahead and raise that up, move this over here. So the RTV N-1 design that I've put together is basically just the Tiny Tim, which was used for the Whack Corporal version of this rocket. And we no longer need that, so we thank it for its service and we can send that away. So before I do, I just want to note we're at 2170 meters per second, and we're putting on the Aerojet 2.5K rocket, or solid rocket, which brings us up to 2313 meters per second. So that gets us a pretty solid 140 meters per second of delta V just out of this extra booster, which is pretty fantastic. The other change is, and that brings us up to the RTV N-8, which, yeah, pretty darn similar to what I've been using, slightly better capabilities, probably able to break atmosphere or break the 140 kilometer mark, even if I put the science capsule and so forth on top of that. But we don't really need to mess with that too much. The next thing to do is I got the AJ-1027 rocket unlocked, which is the last upgrade to the Aerobee line, which brings us out of the Zasser 1 up to the very aptly named AJ-1027 version of the Aerobee. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and buy that, and then we need to play with a couple things. Let's remove all the tanks, re-add the tank once it's the right with the right fuel mix. We have a rated burn time of 52 seconds, which is much too longer than not as long as we had. So there we go, and we're gonna go a little bit more, so 54.7, there we go. So this is the AJ-1027 version of the Aerobee, which has 2,760 meters per second of delta V and higher thrust to weight ratio. Yeah, so this fantastic guy here is going to be basically what we use going forward as far as just plain sounding rockets. However, this is probably going to be AJ-1027, boom. Yeah, let's just do that, make sure that that's all set. This is here and that's all, okay, cool. So go ahead and save that, and there we go there. So let's compare some numbers. So the N-2 is using these old parts, and most importantly, it has this big chonker of a sounding rocket payload tank and the biological return capsule and the recovery parachute pack. But it has less delta V with these extra stages than the new version of the AJ-1027 does dry. So let's go ahead and mess with that. Yeah, so we've got this that gives us a lot more capability and a lot more thrust, so I think this will lower the delta V by less. We actually already have the biological return capsule and the parachute pack on here, but what we're missing is this 1.2 meter sounding rocket payload tank. So as I kind of expected, that brings us down to 2,357 meters per second of delta V, which is, you know, not optimal. And may not actually be enough, but I'm not sure. Let's see, what's the altitude that I need to get to with this? We just need to get to 140 kilometers. All right, no spoilers, but I think that this should indeed work. So let's go ahead and we're gonna save that, and this design is pretty great, and I'm really excited about it. And it gives us some pretty good ideas of where we should go next, because we now have this very capable upper stage that is able to push a pretty good amount downrange. So what if we stacked that on top of our R2 rocket? So yeah, interesting thing that I'm not sure what to make of is using the RD-102. and adjusting the tank size and the tank contents to compensate for the new fuel mix and everything else. If there is any difference in the fuel mix, I'm never 100% sure, so I just redo it from scratch to make sure. Doing that, I would have to stretch the tank enough that it breaks it out of the tooling, so I would have to retool the rocket, which is kind of a pain. And it gets me to 3708 meters per second of delta V, which I bring up because that's the performance of this one with the RD-101 engine. So I feel like there's some use case here that I'm missing. Something that I'm doing differently with this one than I'm doing with the other one. So the rated burn time is a little bit longer, so maybe that's it. So I can actually get a little bit more juice out of this engine. So the difference between these two engines, the RD-101 is slightly less thrust, slightly worse ISP in all circumstances, but just slightly. And it's also a little bit heavier than the other one. So I think that this is just going to be better for this particular circumstance. So I don't see us making any changes to the R2 before I do something else entirely, because the thrust to weight ratio is just fine. Surface level thrust is just fine. I don't have any stress about this design for what it's doing here. So we are just going to go ahead and add one of these to the build queue, and that will be our next film launch. All right, here we are on the pad, and we have our AJ-1027, 3, 2, 1, launch, and look at that sounding rocket go, boom, okay, solid rocket booster go, that's what I meant. Anyways, we are now in flight with this, and this is fantastic. Looks, you know, kind of a lot like the last couple ones that we've flown, but I like that it's getting to be really long and sleek and looking pretty darn cool, if you ask me. So, but otherwise, it's going to be it's going to be basically the same launch you've seen a bunch of times. So let's just skip ahead, shall we? The only difference is now that our speed is getting really high, really low. I'm starting to cook these early procedural wings, which is not going to be a problem for this one, but maybe a problem in the future. All right, so we have just passed, ooh, look at that, we have some new telemetry data, very nice. But yeah, we just passed 179 kilometers of my apoapsis, and we are now heading back down. So yeah, very successful mission. All right, so another contract down gets us another 11,000 funds, which is going to get us another, boop, upgrade, which gives us 2 points because that gets us also over 60 science. And remember, we get 1 extra upgrade point every 20 science that we obtain. So as we get more and more science, we will get more and more upgrades. So let's go ahead and spend this. I mostly want to spend this in the vehicle assembly building. I'm not sure if that's... Do I want to spread this around between my sounding rocket development and my spaceplane development? I'm not sure how much more spaceplane stuff that I actually want to do. I have been having fun with it now that I'm, you know, stealing designs, but we also have tech that we need to work on. Yeah, so we're going to put 1 point in VAB and 1 point in RND, and that will hopefully get us on balance the furthest as we possibly can towards advancement. And so that shows us that we have actually finished the last of our 3 low space biological experimentation contracts. And in doing so, we tested the AJ-1027, which is going to be a mainstay for a lot of rockets going forward. We also have just 1 more low space film return to complete, and then we are going to be moving on to downrange distance launch vehicle testing, which I think is going to be a lot of fun. All right, so I'm not sure that I've actually shown you guys the air launch interface, but one thing that you can choose is the distance from the Space Center, which I am going to bring us back to about 50 kilometers so that I am definitely over land when I get back, because I think I set like 100 kilometers out last time and I just didn't make it. So azimuth from the Space Center and the launch azimuth, I'm pretty sure what that means is you are moved 50 kilometers 90 degrees out. So that azimuth is 90 degrees is this way, so it's basically the directions on your nav ball from vertical on the launch pad is basically what this sort of kind of means. I'm sure there's more nuance to that, but that's what I'm able to take from it. And then launch azimuth 270 degrees means I'm going to be pointing back towards the Space Center, which is exactly what I want. The first node of this gets us a maximum altitude of 7,600 meters and a maximum velocity of 150 meters per second, which is why as soon as we load in, the Redbird B goes into a bit of a dive because the engine is off and it's just about at its stall speed. So that is where we are going to be starting with our next X1 launch. All right, wheels down, all ready to go. Oh gosh, where's my aircraft autopilot? Okay, engine on. Here we go, engage that autopilot. Altitude hold, roll hold. We need to get to, well, now that we are getting stable, thankfully. Experimental rocket planes, we need to get to 15 kilometers. All right, so let's just do that then. 15, 100, boop, and there we go. And yeah, so as you can see, we've already dove about 2,000 meters just from the word go. So yeah, we are going to do that, and looks like my flaps are in the correct position. It's probably not a good thing that I have to like dig myself in this close to look to make sure, but I'm figuring this out. We're learning. I can learn. So yeah, we are on our way onward and upward, climbing to higher and higher heights with our space plane program. So yeah, I'll see you at altitude. And as we get to the thinner part of the atmosphere, you'll notice that I am now directly over the Space Center. But we are able to tip ourselves even further up and still manage to increase our velocity, which is great. That's the benefit of flying around up in the rarefied part of the atmosphere. And so hopefully we'll be able to actually get up to 15 kilometers. We are making our big push there. Then we are going to level out and do some serious flying to try to get to 400 meters per second, which is going to be tough. I may have to do a bit of diving to get there, but we are actually pitched up pretty good. I don't have a lot of fuel left, so we're just going to kind of see how this goes. We're getting close. 14.1, 14.2. I'm going to disengage autopilot and just throw this into a little bit of a dive as soon as we touch that bit of atmosphere, because we only have 20 seconds left. Okay, we hit it. Let's go down. Shoom. And wobble, wobble, wobble. Because we need to hit 400 meters per second between 15 and 10 kilometers. I have 8 seconds of fuel left. We are diving hard for it. Come on, we're almost there. Oh my God. Oh, it's going to be so close. Okay, we might still be okay. Boom. Yes, we did it. I think we did it. Okay, awesome. So let's pull up out of this dive and let's turn around and see if we can't land this thing. All right, that was awesome. Yeah, so that was, I think, about the edge of the performance window for this particular vessel. But yeah, we were able to get all the way up to 15 kilometers and then dive 5 kilometers to get the speed to nail this contract, which is really, really cool. So now it's just a matter of trying real hard to actually roll around here. I'm not having a ton of luck turning. Alright, so we are coming in over the Kennedy Space Center, coming in at the runway at way too much speed. I think I'm just going to pop this parachute. at this point because I am terrified that I am going to blow this thing up when I try to land it. Whoa. See, look at this. I can't even hit the runway with a parachute, so that should tell you everything you need to know about my ability to land this plane normally. But yeah, we're going to see if we can't touch this thing down safely, and maybe I won't blow up the engine this time. No promises. Hey, look at that! How cool! Parachute all the way, worked perfectly, dropped us right in next to the runway, which hopefully gets us there with no problem. So that is fantastic, and we'll be able to play with this plane a little bit more. Alrighty, righty, as we recover the Redbird B from right next door to the runway, we get congratulations on another successful flight. Fantastic. That gets us another 5,000 for completing the contract and another 5,000 for breaking another altitude barrier, which, and I think you're going to start seeing a pattern here, gets us enough funds to buy another point. So we're going to buy another point, and we're going to put that one into... Yep, more rockets, because I like the symmetry of having 5 points in there. That gets us to 0.16, which is 60% more build points per second than we had when we first started this whole thing. All right, so we have completed 2 experimental rocket planes contracts, and that I think gets us to kind of a new, how to put it, a new tier of the X-plane contracts. So there are a total of 4. We have completed 2. Now they want us to get to 550 meters per second at 20 kilometers, which I do not think I'm going to be able to do with the Redbird B as it is. So we're going to have to figure out where we can go from there. Whether I steal another plane or just reconfigure the Redbird B, play around with it a little bit. I don't know. We'll figure something out. The one thing I don't want to do is try to cheat my way through these contracts. One way that I've often gone through, and the way that I did it in my previous playthrough, was to basically just put an X1 cockpit on the end of a regular sounding rocket, like the R2, for example, and then just pretend that's a plane and launch that, and that gets us our manned breaking the sound barrier contracts and that sort of thing, and that's fine. Like that worked out just well enough for me last time. But I feel like kind of meeting this, like there's a challenge here that is being set forth by the developers that says go make some planes, do some flying, just a little bit, match the trajectory of the actual United States manned space program, because they did this before they ever put people in a capsule. The placement of technology in the tree is pretty much correct as far as that's concerned. So yeah, we're gonna fight our way through it, and we might as well, because what else are we gonna do without the extra technology that we need? Might as well keep the spaceplane hangar running simultaneously. That also gets us, ooh, interesting. The X-Plane's High contract, which I've never seen before. So this is all brand shiny and new to me. But what they're asking me to do, like this is the X-Plane Supersonic is the standard procedural get between X and Y at X and Y speed for 3 minutes, whatever. That's actually really good money, and once I make a better spaceplane, maybe I can start knocking those out too. But these, this looks like this is an unlock. So they want us to get to 30 kilometers with a crewed vessel, with 1 crew member on board, reach 30 kilometers, that's redundant, and then return home safely. So this is the kind of thing that we could do by stapling a X1 cockpit on the end of an R2 rocket. But like I said, let's meet this where it is. Let's try it out and see what we can do. And it says the altitude is going to increase to 35 kilometers afterwards, which is very nice. I appreciate them actually telling me up front, because I had to kind of reverse engineer that in the sounding rockets. And then once you hit to 50 kilometers, I guess you can do this a bunch of times. Once you get to that, you're going to get crewed suborbital contracts, which is going to be really exciting. That's some crazy stuff that we'll talk about more when we get to it. All right, this handsome devil is the X1 XLR11-RM5, and that mouthful of acronyms is a new vessel that I will be using that was developed by CMOV, once again from the RP-1 Discord. And this has 2 engines on the back and a sleek swept wing design that should get us through the rest of our early spaceplane contracts. So I'm pretty excited to use that. I've just played around with this and tested it a bit, and it is a very high performance, interesting, fun model. The only trouble that I've had with it is that these are still using the B9 early procedural wings, and I have no idea how to make copies of these and replace them in exactly the right spot with with the supersonic version of the same wing. I'm just terrified that I'm just going to break everything. So we're going to try this out at first, and if this doesn't work, then we're going to figure out what to do from there. Alright, so the only adjustment I'm going to make is going to be adding a parachute, because I have about 0 faith in myself in being able to land this thing properly. So we're going to put this directly over the dry center of mass, with the hopes that this will be able to, if you dangle it from a string directly above this this point, which is exactly what's going to happen when we put the parachute on, the idea is that it's going to place it very gently upon its wheels. And so you'd think put it in between the wheels, but no, you want to have it so that it's laying completely flat, parallel to the ground when it is placed upon the ground, and that is hopefully what this will do. So I am going to now change this up. We're going to change this to, probably don't need anything more than a silk parachute at this stage. We don't need any spare chutes. We're only going to be able to launch this exactly once. And we are going to be using the dry mass and apply the settings, and that actually increased the cost. But that's fine. That hopefully we will be able to set this thing down nicely and nothing will explode. And so we're going to put this down in the next stage group. There we go. Save that. One thing that's important to note that I discovered during testing is that this is an unpressurized cockpit, which, we should know that by now. But that means that we're not going to be able to use this exact design going forward forever, because above 30 kilometers, there's not enough oxygen, and it'll probably kill the pilot, and we really don't want that. So the ceiling on this particular vehicle for now is 30 kilometers until we can make some upgrades. But I really like how this performed. I really also liked how the Redbird performed, but this has the power and speed to get us to our next couple of contracts without me fussing around with it, which is the correct decision. There are additional Redbird models out there that NEF has created, but I don't have access to them, so we are moving to this one. Last thing is we are just going to do some tooling. It's cost us 3,000 funds to reduce the cost by 200, but that saves us 18 days, which I guess is going to be nice. So go ahead and launch one of these. Oh no, we don't actually have enough money. Okay, so I guess we're gonna have to wait till our next sounding rocket contract to be able to launch this thing, but it's in the pipeline. And here goes our last film canister being thrown downrange. You guys know the drill on this one, so hopefully everything goes to plan, and I'll see you when we touch down. Alright, so just 40 meters from touchdown of our third film canister contract. And so yeah, that's good stuff. We are finished with these sounding rocket contracts, and now we need to start working on getting stuff downrange. Okay, so that kind of opens things up for us. So we are finished with these 2 sets of contracts, the biological experimentation and low space film return. So no more sending the same rockets over and over again. I'm sure that'll be a lot more fun going forward now that we're trying out some new stuff, finally. So yeah, our milestone that we're trying to hit is 3,000 kilometers downrange, which we are not close to. The R2 rocket by itself is able to put a film canister about 800 kilometers downrange, which is great, but not, you know, what we need. We need to go a lot further than that. So we are going to go into some development and take a look at what we can do, and we can defray the cost a little bit, not with these altitude sounding rockets, which is something you do with the like the Aerobees, but we want to use the R2 or at least a derivative of that to try out these, and that wants us to go 360 kilometers downrange with 80 units of payload, which, you know, that sounds easy enough. So let's go ahead and grab this contract. Difficult. Just make sure we understand all the contours of this. All right, so this still needs some testing and additional painting, but this is the basic design that we've been going for our downrange, and this is kind of what I've been alluding to when I've been talking about stacking things on top of the Aerobee. Because you'll see we've just got our standard Aerobee here stripped of its fins, and then we have the R2 underneath it with a new nose cone, and the colors kind of show you where things matched up. And this is based very closely on the bumper whack, which is a essentially it was a V2 rocket, or at least the kind that was put together by the Americans during the early space program, with a whack corporal stacked on top of it. So we could probably actually put another booster on top of here to get this another kick, but I've been playing with this, and I've had some good results with this, and I think we're really close. So just some additional testing is going to be necessary. But yeah, this is based on that design, which these taken together, this will get us really far downrange and really increase our capabilities. You'll see we're up to almost 6,000 meters per second of delta V, and if I stick the Aerojet booster underneath in between here, I think that will get us even further. So yeah, some tweaking is going to be needed as we develop this, but we have some contracts to work on it, and I think I can just show you what this works like on its own, and then we can move on from there and see if we can't get to that all-important 3,000 kilometer milestone. But we'll have to continue pushing towards that milestone later on. That's going to do it for me this time. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, comment below. I do love getting your feedback and try to do everything I can to take your feedback into account. So yeah, let me know, and I'll see you all next time.